Great.
Hey, and that was Matt saying hi to you. This is Sue.
Good. Hello, Matt. Hello, Sue.
Hello, Mr. Tate. Seeing it is the hour of 7 o'clock, we're going to call this meeting of the Academic Standards Committee to order. Could we please start by going around the table and introducing ourselves?
Matt Frederickson, IT Director.
Mike Thorwald, Board.
Bill Gerhauser, teacher, President area.
Emily Hidalgo, student.
Joe Hidalgo, School Board. Ed Salomon, School Board.
Linda Ferragamo, staff.
Jason Truskevich, your assistant principal.
Susan McCarthy, principal, council operator.
Barry Desco, Director of K-12 Education. Andy Stanko, Administrator on Special Assignment.
Sue Elliott, assistant superintendent.
And Mary Ann McKee, School Board. On the line, we have Mr. Ed Tate, School Board. And if you would, please, starting with Mrs. Beck.
Cindy Beck, first grade teacher at Goodnow. Sean McNamara, first grade teacher at Goodnow.
Louise Burns, coordinator for the
Michael Nicole, president.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We have 3 agenda items this evening. We're going to begin with Mr. Desco. I'll bring you the other presentation to start us off.
Yes. So the agenda, as you just heard, there's 3 items. 2 of those are relatively brief. So we have an update on the high school scheduling that was first shared with this committee back in February. The focus of tonight primarily will be the K-5 elementary math program, and then following that, another relatively brief presentation for our learning management system. So we're going to start with the high school schedule. And again, as we indicated to you in February, we came before the board and discussed the possibility of changing the high school schedule. And I want to remind you what the primary components of that look like, just to give you a context for the rest of the conversation tonight. We were recommending what's called an 8A-B block schedule. What that actually looks like in practice is students would have an A day and a B day, and they would have 4 different courses on each of those days, totaling 8 over the course of 2 days. And what that really turns into over the course of a year is an opportunity for up to 32 credits, which compared to what we currently offer our high school students, which is 24 credits. So it's a pretty significant shift in the number of credits available to students and the flexibility it provides those. In addition, the entire lunch schedule is going to be revamped and moving to something we call a unit lunch. And in short, a unit lunch is an hour block of time in the middle of the day where all staff and all students basically would eat half an hour and have other opportunities for the other half an hour of that time. Primarily, the focus would be making sure that we can provide remediation and enrichment, but it also gives other opportunities for students to collaborate on work, and maybe be involved in some co-curricular activity, intramurals, those kinds of things. So they were the components of the shift from the current schedule to recommended schedule. So the purpose of tonight is to give you a sense of where we've been and now where we're going. Let me give you a high-level overview of some of the progress that we've made since we presented to you in February. In addition, we want to give you some insight about some of the decisions that are yet to be made and some of the areas of focus that you will have in place moving forward. And lastly, we want to prepare for you, the board, next steps that we will need from you regarding the direction to take if we're going to consider making this kind of shift in our work. So we have started a number of subcommittees. These are the groups that are currently meeting. The first one is focusing specifically on the graduation requirements. So we have specific graduation requirements for our high school students based on the 24 credits available in the current schedule, and now we would look to revise those as we would be ready to course opportunities in this new schedule. In addition, we have a group specifically working on modeling the schedule, because although you see that general overview with 8A-B, 4 courses on day A, 4 courses on day B, that's very simplistic, and a lot of work needs to happen to see what that would look like and what the impact would be for students, for staff, etc. The unit lunch is a complete and separate committee and requires a lot of work, because where we now have 5 lunches in each of our high schools, we would be moving this to one relatively single lunch period. Again, not everybody eating at the same time, but certainly accommodating far larger number of students in a smaller period of time, both to eat and then to have some other opportunities available to them. We have a professional development curriculum committee, and they are working on some of the things that you probably project moving forward. We're going to have a lot of professional development. You're shifting for teachers, moving from instruction in a 55-minute period to over 80 minutes in a period. It's quite different. So we want to provide professional development. Also, there's going to be some curriculum shifts. So not only would we look to determine our current courses and how they might be revised, but certainly any new courses that we would want to offer to fit into this new schedule. And then lastly, we have CRE discussions, because this is a shift in what is the current contract language, and we have to have those conversations and make sure that both the school district and the Teachers Association are on board with some of these changes. So those are phased, and what we're going to do is ask each of one of the members or a couple of members of each of the committees to report out on some of the work that they've done and some of the progress that they've made so far. So the first are the graduation requirements, and Harvey.
I'm one of the members of the graduation requirements subcommittee, and we began our work as a starting point by looking at the requirements that neighboring schools did, and neighboring is more than just our immediate surroundings. We actually researched approximately 46 school districts, most in the 5-county area. However, some were also in western Pennsylvania. And out of the 46 school districts, there were approximately 22 that had a semblance of an 8-period schedule, somewhat similar to what we're looking at. And what I mean by that is, for example, Conestoga High School had an 8-period day every day. Pennsbury High School had 4 periods per semester, but then a different 4 periods second semester. William Tennant High School had a schedule similar to ours with an 8B schedule for one day, and then on the next day, 4 different periods. So that's what I mean by similar kinds of experiences. And out of those 22 high schools, we found that their graduation requirements ranged anywhere from 22 to 29 credits, with most falling into the 24 to 28 range. So at this point, our committee landed on the number 28 as the number of credits required for graduation from the Council Rock School District over the course of the 3 years. So you might wonder what. Okay, sure. Sorry. Okay, sorry. So anyway, you might wonder what is the specific course requirement that we entail. So we would have 4 English, which is the same as it is right now. We have 3 math and 3 science, which as it stands is the same as it is right now. However, the difference being that we would require, or are recommended to be required, 2 additional courses in math and or science, and that would be up to the individual student. 3 social studies is the same as it is right now. 2 credits of health and PE is the same as it is right now. 0.5 credit financial literacy is different. That is in addition to anything that we do right now. And 4 credits of arts and humanities electives. Currently, we are requiring 2. Arts and humanities include courses in English, social studies, world language, art, music, family and consumer science, and tech ed. And then 6.5 general electives. Currently, we are requiring 6 general electives. And the only addition to everything that you see up there, plus the arts and humanities, would be business courses, which are currently not part of any of the other categories listed. For future considerations, as you can see, a student over the course of 4 years has the opportunity to take up to 32 credits, we would be recommending that 28 be required. So that leaves a little bit of cushion, and we are looking at the possibility of offering study halls to students. I'm not requiring that they take study halls, but the possibility of one study hall per year for each of the 4 years. And if they choose not to take a study hall, then they certainly can take another course. Right now, in our current schedule, we have 24 slots with 23 required, and every student takes 24 credits. They take that extra, although it isn't required for graduation. I don't know how much, that would play out with the difference between 28 and 32. I suspect the study halls might be fairly long. We also are considering the possibility of leave arrival early dismissal, perhaps as a senior privilege, if they have study hall during first or periods. The possibility of some courses actually being offered as more than 1 credit, and we're thinking, perhaps 1.5, and perhaps for some of our AP courses that our curriculum coordinators recommend would need the extra time to fulfill the requirements of those courses. Now, we can't do that for every AP course because that would impact the schedule too greatly. However, there may be some that this would be appropriate for, and that would require further research. We also have to look carefully at our NDIT and work study programs and actually, look to see exactly what we're requiring now and what we would require with a different schedule. It would probably give those students more opportunities because in a 6-period day, with them only being in our school for half a day in the situation or case of NDIT, they really are quite restricted, and some of their requirements are fulfilled concurrently at NDIT right now. With the new schedule, we have more opportunities to fulfill those requirements in our school. And then we put separate PTC, and that isn't meant to be taken lightly. There are just so many things that we need to think about, things that we don't even know we need to think about. We're in the process of trying to troubleshoot for all the unintended consequences that will occur in change as dramatic as this. So there will be one more of this kind of thing added to the list as time goes on.
So as you hear the conversations with the community, you're going to recognize how important every committee's work is to every other committee. Some of the work for some committees can't begin until some of the decisions are made by the other committee. So it's really a complex process trying to fit all this together and having committees working at the same time. So the next committee, Ms. Carriello and Mr. Kostevich have worked on beginning to model that based on some of these credit recommendations.
Thanks. So yeah, so Lynn, Christina Rebeta, Lauren Pearson, and I have been tasked at looking at creating a model schedule. Really going in depth and looking at what would be necessary at the 2 high schools if we were to accommodate all these classes, all the requirements, and what would be the staffing necessary for it to run effectively. And one of the limiting factors we have had so far is really determining what would be the graduation requirements. Because obviously the more credits that are required for graduation, the more courses we would have to offer, and in turn increasing the amount of staff necessary. Also looking at particular subject areas and how that could be impacted. So based off the recommendations just given, we're able to kind of go forward and start that process of determining what is needed in our schedules at the 2 high schools. And one thing that we can do is really start by taking an analysis of how many credits are currently needed and looking forward. For example, as Susan just said, in English, students currently are required 4 credits in English. Proposed to schedule 4 credits as well. We may not see that significant change in staffing in the English requirement, whereas we may see it in the math and sciences where there's going to be an increased amount of credits necessary for graduation. So that's one area we can look at. And again, also with the elective areas, we expect to see an increase in the elective areas. And that's an area which we'll be focusing. But there's also a lot of restraints as well in those particular elective areas based on our facilities. Now, a perfect example, the art department in the South currently has 2 classrooms, so they're able to hold 16 classes with those new schedule, whereas in the North, there's 3 classrooms, there's 24. So you may see variations in the elective offerings, the number of classes being offered. So those are 2 areas in which the 4 of us are going to be working throughout the summer and really get a pretty good understanding of what staffing would be necessary. What we have been doing over the past couple of months is really continue our conversation with a number of school districts that did move over to the 8-8 So Lehigh is in year 5, Upper Moreland's in year 2, and William Tennant is in their first year of the schedule. And communicating with their administrators, their schedulers, and counselors about how they went through that process and the changes that they saw in staffing in their elective areas and how they handled some of the struggles that we just said. Maybe there's only so many music classrooms in art classrooms. How did they balance that over the past couple of years? So that's kind of where we are now and where we'll be going through the next couple of months, finalizing our schedule for next year and looking at scheduling on those.
We're also looking at the teachers' preps, and that's something that the REA, that committee is also working with us, because teachers now teach, are they going to teach an extra course, are they having 2 full preps, is it going to be a prep again? And so things like that will go into staffing. So while we need more courses, the teachers will be teaching more classes, so it's not going to be as drastic as it could be.
I expect, I mean, you've added some wiggle room with these electives. I expect you're going to see, and I hope we offer some STEM electives, STEAM electives. It's not all going to be art, and it's going to, I expect, based on our demographics, it's going to be a lot of science, a lot of math, and a lot of STEM-oriented classes, and that's where our staffing changes are more likely going to happen. So,
Dr. Cole, that's a great segue, because the next committee is curriculum and professional development.
okay, sorry.
That works perfectly, because now you see the connection between these. So, great, thank you. Very
Sorry.
Thank you for that segue. So Mr. Sanko and I co-chair the Professional Development and Curriculum Committee. And some of the work that we've done so far with this committee, which includes the 2 of us and all of the curriculum coordinators, is looking at really trying to map out what needs to be done from a perspective of curriculum development as well as professional development, and how much time is going to be needed to accomplish those things. And so we've looked at really 2 particular areas. What is the professional development that's needed for a shift in teaching from the time that we have now, which is a 50, 54, 55-minute period, to a 100, what's our total minutes? I forget. 80, 84. So adding more instructional time to a class period. How do you shift your instruction? What does classroom instruction look like? What does the work look like for students, knowing that we have classes happening on alternate days? What does that look like from a work perspective relative to not only homework, but in-class work, knowing that your students are going to be with you one day, not the next day, and then coming back to you. So we've looked at those areas of professional development and started thinking about how do we map those across time, basically what needs to happen first, and how do we work on that. And then also looking at the curriculum aspect, and that includes, as Barry talked about, looking at our current courses. What revisions do we need to make to our current courses because of the change in instructional minutes? If we're looking at some courses, as you heard said about being more than 1 credit, we also need to look at the revisions for those courses and what do we do for those courses as well. And also really looking at a review of, we're talking about adding courses, but another important piece to something that we need to look at is we currently have many courses in our program planning guide that don't run.
Oh,
from
Which
year
is
to
a
year.
clock, yeah.
And for different reasons. Many times it's that not enough students sign up for that course. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is look at our current courses, review those and see, do we need to make changes to those, as well as looking at possible new courses in addition to revising the ones we have. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Again, it's all connected together with some of the pieces, but knowing, the recommended graduation requirements in the areas where we're making some shifts will help to inform some of that work. But again, it's a lot of time and energy really spent on curriculum writing, development, review, and then all of the professional development around practice and supporting students.
And to your point around STEM or STEAM, Sue, I know you just recently took a look at our current
I did.
high school offerings.
So we currently offer 40 STEAM classes in whether it's in science, mathematics, business and computer information technology, or tech ed are the four main areas where we offer those courses. So that's something that we're continuing to look at. I know that not only because of some of this work, but also because, if you remember, we talked about the PA Smart Grant that we received from Pennsylvania. So with some of that work, we're looking at developing some knowledge and being able to develop some additional courses, possibly a cybersecurity course, possibly also a gaming course in the future. So we are looking at some of those different courses that we could offer that would fit in STEAM as well.
That 6-credit block you've created here gives you a great opportunity to fuse some of these classes, because it's not just independent. They could build on one another. There's a math component, there's a science component. Yeah, and then it rolls into your tech with, okay. So,
And remember that STEAM is a pretty central part of our upcoming strategic plan as well, K-12. But yeah, it'll be exciting.
yeah, no, this is, yeah,
And some
it's
of these
good.
opportunities.
In reviewing courses that haven't been run, I just want to sort of tread lightly, because it couldn't be that certain courses weren't running because kids didn't have the ability to take.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I don't want to just be like, oh, that didn't run for X number of years, let's just take that one out, because now you're opening up a possibility where they can actually take more.
So, and Denise, I think your point's a really good one. And some of this work that we'll do will involve surveying stakeholders. So surveying both our teachers, our students and parents to get a sense of what would be the kinds of things that you would be interested in taking, or of the courses that we have that maybe you would love to have taken or would take if you had time in your schedule. So getting some additional information to help inform our review will also be important. And we do have, data that we can look at. We've looked at that of courses that haven't run for X number of years, and evaluating that. And some of that is looking at, do you retool that course?
Oh, absolutely. Interesting. And this is from memory, but I think like if the computer science didn't run Excel for one. Okay, well, okay. Right. But, but now that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So, and especially with the focus of the new requirements being such that we will satisfy them, I think that's great.
And I think I would defer to our scheduling experts. I think there are always, no matter what your schedule is, there are always going to be courses that don't run because you don't have enough students, you can't fit it into people's schedules. So we're never going to completely get away from that, but I think this is going to give our students many more opportunities.
And one course that will run, and I want to plug it, is that financial literacy course. Which I want to give a shout out to Charlotte Jackson and a couple of her colleagues, because they have already put together a bit of a draft scope and sequence for that course. It's sitting in my inbox right now, and I can't wait to take a look at it. So
is that being planned for a certain grade level, or would it be
to be determined, but definitely a required 0.5 part of the high school experience. Yeah, it is great. So it just goes to show we're this far out, and they're gung ho in working on this and creating this, and it's a great thing for our high school students.
I have a question. As far as so we have 3 math and 3 science classes required now. We're going to require 2 more. And so I'm wondering, like, because there'll be less time, or if there's more courses, if there's 8 versus 6, will we have to modify the subject matter in each course, or abbreviate things to fit everything in, you know, versus how it is now? Is that
So there are two aspects to that, Joe. So one is, the reality with going from the 6 classes a day to the 8 courses total, the number of instructional minutes per class is reducing. So that does require revisions to the curriculum and looking at, what we need to do in the curriculum of those courses. The math and science, having those additional 2 courses, and we were deliberate in making it a choice so that students can pick between, if they want to take 2 additional math courses or 2 additional science courses, they have that opportunity to do that. In addition to some of those things fitting into other places as well. So yes, we're going to have to look at the curriculum for all of our courses that we currently offer because of the reduced instructional minutes. But then we're also going to be looking at, the new courses, and the 2 aren't necessarily connected to each other. Why we have the additional math and science because of the shift to the fewer minutes.
Okay. No, I thought it'd be good to have more choice and people can focus in on what they're interested in.
A common core is
Yeah.
common core. I mean, so
Yeah.
that has to happen.
There you go.
And in an AP course, they don't care if you teach them for 10 minutes a day or 3 hours. There's a set amount of material that has to be done by May. They have to have it by May. So it's just how you deliver it. And other schools are doing it.
Sounds good.
So the next area was.
Sorry, can I just make a quick comment?
Certainly.
Can we bring, and maybe you guys are looking at this, can we bring the elementary level principals and middle school principals and those people involved in this process for curriculum ideas? Because I can tell you, the kids in our elementary school taking advantage of your last 4 years of this administration, they're doing things different the high school kids never touched. There's a want and a need at the elementary level for, we're going to roll out came out the other day about a STEAM automobile type of thing that's going to come to the school. My oldest never saw anything like that. So there's a trend at the elementary level that's really, I think, if we can kind of connect the dots, so to speak, maybe worth a look. Because those kids are really, really into this stuff. And I don't want to venture to say that the high school kids aren't, but there's
A lot of innovation.
yeah, just my perspective.
As long as we do it uniformly. Yep.
I agree, absolutely.
So Mr. Sanko and Mr. Bearhauser will be leading the next area, which is our unit lunch. So let's talk about that.
I didn't hear about this. How are we pulling this one off?
Thanks, Frank. So, completely said, we've, Andy and I have met with Doug Taylor and Bill Stone to try to start to get some initial looks at.
And the subcommittee.
And the subcommittee, to look at what would actually have to happen to implement unit lunch. And this is everything from meeting with, as you can see, the food service designer, considerations to what the building reconfigurations are going to look like. Both Susan and Al Funk, we were given plans for the building, outlined areas that we could use for the kids to meet in, those new spaces to be used for meeting spaces, or additional room to have kids eat lunch. What the supervision of that 1 hour block of time, we come to call it our rock block, would start to look like, and then how the programming inside would start to look like.
I think, go back to what Barry said earlier, so we're looking at, if you just take one of our high schools, Council Rock and work with roughly 1,700 kids, we would be feeding in 30 minutes, roughly 850 students plus half the staff, and then the next half hour in that 1 hour block, we'd be doing it equally the same for the other students. And woven into that time would require us to, and have required us to look at things, as Bill said, some kind of accountability system so we know where students are. What does it look like for supervision of students during that time, which would require work with CREA and continue the work with with Doug Taylor and his department, along with, fire department and the health inspectors and that kind of thing. Some rules have to be put around, and where can we allow students to eat? What does it look like? Do we have a seat per student? Do we allow students to be in the auditorium and eat? Do they go to the auxiliary gym? Do we put high top tables around? There's benches around? What does it look like in the during the warm weather, and we allow students outside? So there's, is going back again to what Barry said, there are a lot of things that are interwoven in each one of these forms of this whole high school schedule change.
One of the things that Susan talked about on her first slide was that et cetera at the bottom, and I think, as Andy and I met with our subcommittee and with Doug and Bill the other day, Phil Stone the other day, there were things that Doug Taylor brought up that I know, at least in my head, I wasn't even thinking about. If we, at North, for instance, to repurpose the hallway between guidance and career ed office as a meeting space or a gathering space, one of the first things that Doug pointed out is that aside from removing a bank of lockers and leveling out the floor, if you're going to use that as a study space or a gathering space for kids, now you have to increase the light level so they have, so they can see and study. It's just one of those things that prior to that conversation was not something, at least for me, that I ever even thought might be a consideration.
And it's going to require a lot of discussion with third-party vendors like Aramark, because if you're feeding 900,000 people in a half hour, do we have the workforce to be able to clean up and empty trash cans and then also the third-party vendor with Chartwells? Can they prepare the food? Excuse me. Do we have kiosks? I mean, we even have it worked down to the number of students that we can get through per minute per register, based on the expert opinion of one of the gentlemen that Doug brought in to help us with this. So,
Unfortunately, this is a concept that's hard to grasp. Unfortunately, we've seen it in several area high schools, so there's been a number of visitations where you've actually seen it in action. You can learn from what other people have already done. So, all right, next, Bill, we're going again because now it's area.
Yes, so I guess the last piece, selfishly say should be the most important one. But for us, obviously, if all of this goes through, it's a change to our workload. So a good part of this, as I've said to everybody who's been part of the committee from the beginning, is that, one of the things prior to implementation is that since it changes our workloads, there's a piece of this that needs to be negotiated. To date, I have not had, as president, have not had anything that even closely resembles a formal conversation with CREA's exec board regarding any of this, simply because once we get, I don't want to get that ball rolling until that process for us is pretty involved in terms of getting people involved in the committee. We start to do our own homework prior to going into a negotiation or setting up an MOU. So for us, at this point, we're in a holding pattern. I mean, it's not as if this is a secret, everybody knows we're talking about it, but in terms of doing anything formal on our end, we're waiting to see what board approval will or won't happen, and at that point, then we'll go, forward and start talking with the district about what that would look like.
And Mr. Tompkins, part of the, had met with their respective faculties, gone over it, explained much of, what you saw in February to their staff. So the high school folks are aware of it, know what we're talking about. At least we prepared to engage in that conversation should it go forward.
I think it's premature to go much further until we have something more solidified. So,
and I think one of the, if I can, Barry, just add something in that Solomon mentioned, I think is worth having a discussion about, is that when and if this all goes forward, I think getting the junior high teachers, middle school teachers, and the middle school students involved, just to let them know what that change is going to look like, because those are the kids based on the timeline that are going to see that change, and to let those kids know what's coming, in their high school lives into this whole.
And they go forward to it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's.
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they can make a change at the middle school level
Mhm.
that dovetails right into their high school
Right.
experience.
Some people have it.
I think we have a bunch of plans to do here, but they segue right into the next slide, so perfect, Bill, thanks. So the next steps, this is really going to give you as a board and the community a sense of what's happening next. So, first thing is we are developing several mechanisms to gather feedback, one of which is a high school scheduling CRS.org email address that is live now. We will advertise it for others, for people listening to it, know that that's available. Really, it is not at this point in time an opportunity to do Q&A. People just want to send their thoughts, let us know if you think about this, offer suggestions. They're welcome to do that. We'll have other ways in which we can do an FAQ, do some Q&A stuff. It's too early right now to do so. The other thing that we're looking to do is to develop a stakeholder survey that we will issue in the fall of the next school year. Like Bill said, and like Ed was talking about, maybe this goes down to 7th and 8th graders, or the ones that would probably be most impacted by it. But we want to get current high school students who live on the high school schedule also to weigh in on, as well as parents whose children are living. So that's what we're looking to do as initial steps to get some feedback. Subcommittees have been charged to continue to do their work and develop a specific cost analysis for each of the areas that they are working on. So we'll have a cost analysis for the shift to a unit lunch. We'll have a cost analysis for the schedule change and road meeting staffing, etc. We'll have a cost analysis for the development of courses and professional development that we need to put in place, etc. So those will be done, and then our plan is to, with the cost and the survey results, to report back to you again at our fall meeting in October to give you a sense of what our findings are. So it'll be a more complete picture, it'll be a little bit longer presentation, an opportunity to be a little bit more in depth. Because ultimately, what we would need from the board is a pretty solid direction by December 1 if we're going to implement the 21-22 school year. Now, in fairness, if we can't, and there's not a comfort level with that, everything can be pushed back. So if we can't make that decision by December 1, as long as the board knows that as soon as we could then likely implement would be 22. And the reason for that is all these things that you heard. Schedulers are scheduling under the current environment, and then they have to schedule for a new program. We got to think of the phase-in, because you're going to have juniors, regardless of the year that's implemented, that move in current graduation requirements and jump into a brand new schedule for 1 year. What are the graduation requirements for their students? Does it change at all? So it's going to be this phased-in process for all of the grade levels. So a lot of work. You can imagine the things you heard about unit lunch and what that might look like, and the preparations we would need to make. So that is our plan for you as the board, which you can expect from us, and then we'll see where we go when we get to the fall. Okay?
Thank you very much, Mr. Disco. Any other questions from the board? Any other board comment?
The only comment I'll make is, and Barry touched on it just now, was at some point we throw a switch on a group of students that are at some point, we're doing it to the staff, we've talked, but at some point in their high school career, and we just need to be cognizant of that and make sure we've got a plan for those kids. Because for 3 years, you're going to have somebody that's started on one schedule and moved up. And I want to make sure we handle that well.
Because they're going to shift from a 5-minute class to
I know. Yep. So, okay.
I think it's very valuable to collect feedback from people who aren't necessarily in high school yet, but I'd like to see the survey constructed. I don't know if you get the same questions, and I would certainly want to do an analysis to not dilute or affect the overall findings of the survey, because I think it's an entirely different analysis when you're talking to people who've never been to the high school and never experienced it versus someone else. I just want to throw that out as you're developing.
Are you volunteering to help with that? Because you're going
The resident expert.
Marianne?
Yes, Mr. Tate?
I have a couple of questions if you can hear me well enough.
We can, please go on.
I love the idea, Mr. Desco, the email address. That worked well with redistricting, it's worked well with the schedule change. And I hope that, as was the previous initiatives, I hope all of the incoming emails go to all the board members. I think we found that very useful.
Yes, I
The
believe
other-
that,
Yes.
yes, that is
Yes.
the intent. Yes.
Good. All right, thanks. And the other thing I wanted to raise, I think we've heard some real terrific ideas and some obvious benefits of moving in this direction. The one concern that I've heard from parents has to do with AP courses. And they're concerned that the way this schedule shakes out would make it even more challenging for students to take multiple AP courses. Could you just reassure me that that is being examined?
It is, and specifically, we've spoken to, and it's really hard to gauge what people mean by this, but we've talked to school districts that have made a shift from their previous schedule to something similar to what we have, and those that are currently running a schedule just like this, and ask them the impact on AP scores. And what we've heard is that there's been very little, if any, and if there was, it was maybe a slight dip, a very slight dip, in that first year as things got established, but they've not noticed anything that would be of significant concern. So that's the best we have for you now, and it's really just based on our ability to ask questions of high schools that have made a change and what they've learned from that. But as you heard Mr. McCarthy talk about that 1+ credit, if we have those concerns, we can certainly add time to an AP course if necessary, and it would meet, as all the other courses would, plus some additional time, and that's why we've given that an additional half credit.
And Barry, while you're on that, can you speak to just the number of opportunities that kids will have to take AP classes? More, less, same?
More AP opportunities, more well, because they're electives now. They could take more APs as elective courses should they choose to do so.
Mr. Tate, does that give you what you need?
Yeah. That's great to hear, and again, I think this demonstrates the value of the benchmarking that you've done, which is terrifically impressive. I mean, the number of other school districts that you've looked at really gives us, I think, a pretty great comfort level that, no stone is being left unturned. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. And before we move on, I just wanted to acknowledge, shortly after we had made our introductions, we were joined by Mrs. Brooks from the school board and Dr. Frazier, our superintendent, and I think some more members of the community, yes? Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Elaine Colley, parents.
Very good, and I see you're in uniform. Thank you for joining us tonight. Oh, yes, please.
I don't know who this is directed towards, but I mean, so October, we're going to get a cost analysis on this. Last time we met, we discussed somewhere in the range of $1.7 to $2 million increase to roll the schedule out. I'd like to see come October, how we're going to fit that into our current budget, what we're going to be losing, what could be on the chopping block, so to speak. I like it, but as we just went through our finance committee meetings and what it took to get certain things put into the budget, this is a big sticking point for me. I absolutely, and I think we all agreed on last time we met, we talked about this. I don't think there's anybody on the board that doesn't like it. I think my issue will be, I want to be on record and say, trying to squeeze that in a budget that's extremely tight now is going to be a chore.
Mr. Stone's been part of the conversation. So.
And he's doing wonderful work. But come October, I'd like to see, time effect comparison we do with the technology.
You need to understand the impact.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to us. I think the people that are affected by this.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We previously had a conversation on just that topic, and we're hoping that after that October meeting where we're given some projections, we might like to follow that up with, it might even be the following week, the finance committee, and have this carry over into finance as well.
I just want to say how happy I am with this work, and I don't know where it's headed, but for me, I've heard talk about really looking at the schedule for so many years. I mean, since my kids were in school. And so, whether we advance with it or not, just knowing that we've done the work to figure this out is, the most we could ask for. So I just want to thank everybody. I know it's a huge task.
It gives the students options. I have a son that's in 8th grade, and my wife has already written down what his schedule is going to be for the next 4 years, because there are no options in the high school schedule. There are none. And she proved it by pulling out Samantha's from 4 years ago, and it's exactly as she said it was going to be. So I think it's great that we're trying to let the kids tailor their high school experience a little bit to their interests, which is important.
Good, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to transition to our next agenda topic, which is our new elementary math program that we're bringing to the board tonight. So we're transitioning a few people new to the table for the presentation as we're shifting.
Stop down there, 25. So stop down there. She's in that but yeah, we talked about what we talked about at lunch and what we saw and all that stuff. Talk about your friends a little bit. All right? Good to see you. Yeah, take care. Yeah, see you guys. See you.
Hi, Joe.
All right. So in March, when we had our typical textbook approvals, we had all of the other textbooks that were presented to the board for approval for next year. And at that meeting, I indicated that we would also be bringing forward a new K-5 elementary math program. But we're delaying that presentation until May because we still had our committee piloting and doing some evaluation of data. And I don't want to steal Dr. Eastburn's thunder, but we were really doing a thorough look at programs, and we're not prepared in March to be able to bring that forward. Needed some more time, so we're bringing that tonight. And I'm going to let Julie introduce the folks that she has with her and go through explaining this new program to you as our second agenda item. So Julie, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. I have with me 3 wonderful teachers that were part of the pilot program this year that, as we get into the presentation, will actually share with you some of the observations that they had in the classroom and some of the ways that it really has changed their teaching for the better for this year. So I have with me Cindy Beck, who is first grade at Goodnow, Michelle McNamara, also first grade at Goodnow, and then Charlene Moore, who is fourth grade at Wrightstown. So I just want to give you a little bit of background on where all of this came from. We adopted our last math program back in the 2010-2011 school year. Unfortunately, a few years before the PA Core came on board, as we transitioned to PA Core, we found some gaps. We tried to find ways to fill those gaps, and we're finding that we had some difficulty meeting all the rigorous standards of the PA Core. So in the 2017-18 school year, we started reviewing what currently works and what needs to be improved in the elementary math committee. That's what we spent our year talking about. What's working for us in mathematics, K-5, and what kinds of things do we need to change to make our math program even stronger for students. In the 18-19 school year, last school year, we spent the time looking at all of the different programs that were available. And I did some research on talking to other districts around us, other high-performing districts and other districts that surround us, to find out which math programs they were using and what they found as successes and areas of need in those programs. And then I also went on to ed reports. It's oftentimes hard to find ways to evaluate math curriculum that are published by the publisher themselves. They will provide you many white papers that will tell you how wonderful the program is. The nice thing about ed reports is that they are independent and they do evaluate their programs. So a combination of speaking to other districts, looking at what some independent researchers say is, provides quality programs. We decided to look at Bridges and Ready with the combination of iReady, Go Math, Eureka, Everyday Math, My Math, Envision, and Math and Focus. And we had representatives come in and present to our committee from all of those textbook publishers, kind of giving us their sales pitch on what works and what's so amazing with their program. And it is a sales pitch. So what we did to try to break through some of the sales pitch jargon that gets thrown at you is we had evaluation sheets that everyone that was on the committee used these evaluation sheets, and there were 3 different areas. We looked at math content and pedagogy, so actually what is the content of the math program? Does it truly match the core standards? And then is it offering instructional strategies for teachers that get to the best practices in mathematics, and also talk about how kids best learn mathematics, what the research says on that. We also looked at their assessment and what kinds of assessments they offer and how they evaluate student learning in their program. And then we also looked at a technology component. And when I went through and calculated all the scores on the different programs, it came down to probably 4 or 5, and then we kind of broke it down from there. And we finally had 2 programs that emerged at the top, and interestingly, they were also the 2 very highly rated programs in ed reports. So that was kind of confirmation for us as a committee that we were looking at the programs in good ways. So we piloted 2 different programs during the school year, Bridges in Mathematics and Ready and iReady Mathematics. And iReady is an online component to Ready Mathematics. Interestingly, neither of these programs were from the big publishing houses. They're smaller publishing companies who actually really wrote their program to match the core standards instead of taking an existing program and adapting it to the core standards. And that really, we found made a big difference. So this year, we implemented both Bridges and iReady. We had Bridges in Mathematics. There were 31 teachers across the district, K-5, and it calls for 80 minutes of instruction daily. And we implemented Ready and iReady with 37 teachers across the district in grades 1 to 5. And that calls for 60 minutes of instruction per day, plus a minimum of 45 minutes a week on iReady, the online component that is diagnostic and then offers instruction and activities at a student's instructional level. And we had, in most cases, we had an entire grade level in the school pilot the program together, knowing that these programs were going to be a heavy load for teachers in implementation, and knowing that we do our best work when we work together in the classroom instead of working in isolation. So we had pockets, all the teachers that could know, all the first grade teachers implemented Bridges, and all the fourth grade teachers, all 2 of you. Yeah. Oh, sorry, special ed, different grade, yes, I'm sorry.
Volunteer for this, or?
They did.
Well, my partner, it was kind of like, I thought we're just someone else, some other teacher behind. Do the teachers volunteer or volunteer other teachers for them?
Yes. So
I know how very persuasive.
So I asked teachers that were on the committee if they would want to pilot a program, and then I asked them to talk to their teammates and see if they could get them to pilot with them. There were a couple teachers where their teammates didn't want to, the whole grade level didn't want to pilot, so there were a couple, kind of rogue implementers, but most, the whole grade level jumped on board together.
Are we using different schools and subsets of teachers than we did 10 years ago or 9 years ago for Envision? It's not the same cadre of teachers.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
However, I was one of them.
But
I was one of
you were one of
them.
them.
Is Welsh piloting the program?
Welsh has, Welsh was only piloting the Ready Math.
Right.
And we met monthly with the pilot teachers to discuss how it was going, what they were finding as their strengths and weaknesses, what kind of professional development did you need, what kind of support could we offer to help make implementation. It was great to share across districts. Other first grade classrooms that were implementing it had different experiences and different kinds of questions. So it was nice to hear across grade levels. So in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the program, we decided that we really wanted some quantitative data to say, are any of these programs showing a statistical difference for student achievement? Because ultimately, the reason for making a change in that program is to increase student achievement. So we wanted some way to measure that student achievement. And we also wanted to get teacher feedback, and we also sent out a parent survey to make sure that we were getting, and as I visited classrooms, I interviewed students to get students' perspective on the program, and then also, parent perspective, because as both an educator and a parent, I know that what I, as an educator, see in the classroom is sometimes different than what, a child is really feeling and experiencing because they let down and give different emotions than they would give at home than they give in school. So we use the Exact Path program in grades 1 and 2. iReady was more than willing to let us use their diagnostic program for free, but we decided that we didn't want to use iReady, since that was one of the programs that we were piloting. We really didn't want to give any slight advantage to students who were already in the iReady program and had that experience. We wanted an independent measure. So we used Exact Path in grades 1 and 2, and then we used a free tool from the state of Pennsylvania called the CDT, the Classroom Diagnostic Tool. That really is just a measure of student progress towards PA4 standards. So we gave the Exact Path and a full CDT to students, all students in the pilot program in January, and then we wanted to dig a little bit deeper. In March, we gave a few to grades 3 and 5, and we gave a few of the diagnostic, subcategory portions of the CDT to students. And I took all of the results from the students and ran some statistics on them and determined that, in fact, in grades, and I can tell you that, my belief was that after 4 to 5 months of instruction in a new program, we may not see a change in achievement yet because it was such a short amount of time to really change student achievement that quickly. And in grades 1 and 2, there really was no statistical difference in the scale scores from the Exact Path. So there was really no signal to detect that one program was meeting the needs differently than another. But as we got to grades 3 to 5, I really started to see a statistically significant difference in achievement as measured on the CDT. The p-value, or the chance that this was happening by chance, was actually getting smaller and smaller the higher up the grade levels that we went. So student achievement was skyrocketing even more and more the higher we went up, which is, again, was against everything that I thought that I would see. And I was really finding no statistical difference between Ready and iReady and students that were still in Envision in grades 3 to 5, but I was seeing a statistically difference in scale scores for students that were in Bridges. So with the data from that, with the data from teacher feedback, and the data from parent surveys, it was the Bridges program that we ended up choosing. And I feel happy and proud that we picked a program that I really think has the potential to statistically significantly increase student achievement in the mathematics program in Council Rock School District.
I'm going there. Did you treat all students equal? I mean, students are a bell curve and achievement's a bell curve. Which students are achieving?
But I controlled for differences between schools? No.
No.
Can I randomly pick, pilot classrooms? I would say as much as you can randomly, it was a teacher volunteer program, so you take that line randomness out, but my pilot classrooms were randomly chosen.
And you're in grades 1 and 2, so maybe you also have radically different aptitudes amongst your students too. And I guess where I'm going is, which is this going to meet the needs of all our students, not just the ones in the middle, not the lower end? That's
Yes, yes. And
we're getting beat up for that, so I'd like
yes,
to.
I know we are. I can tell you that many of the conversations that we had during those monthly meetings talked about what are you finding with your struggling learners? What are you finding with your gifted learners? What are you finding with those very high achieving students? And we had those conversations, and I can tell you that most teachers in the pilot in Bridges found that during meantime, that time set aside for instruction, not instruction, but for additional help for students, whether it be because they've already mastered what they are learning or still need some more assistance. The British teachers weren't telling me that they needed extra resources, that they felt like the program was providing the resources that they could challenge students on no matter where their achievement level was. So I think that we found a program that is conceptually challenging enough that it lays the foundations for conceptual learning, which then allows students to go deeper into their understanding of mathematics instead of increasing, let's learn double-digit multiplication and then triple-digit multiplication, where it really gets into something different. And you'll hear that from classroom teachers when they tell you when you see some of the work that students are doing. I can tell you that I walked into a classroom at Wrightstown in Andy Bowman's class, and this is a 4th grade classroom, and I watched a conversation with students. They had a combination of fractions, decimals, and percents, and they were putting them on a number line between 0 and 2. And this whole rich discussion was going on that Andy was kind of sitting back, maybe adding something in when she needed to, but the rich discussion that was going on in that classroom was amazing. And when I went back and talked to some of my high school colleagues about what I just saw, they were like, oh my gosh, if we can get kids to understand this and articulate this, imagine what my Algebra 1 class would be like. And it was a classroom full of actively engaged students, and they were using mathematical language, and there was no way that a child in that classroom was not gaining mathematically from being in that classroom and part of that discussion. That's a long answer to a complicated question. So I want to talk a little bit about implementation and how we're going to roll this program out. It certainly is going to require a lot of teacher professional development, and administration certainly recognizes that, and they have given math more time for professional development next year because of that. We're offering workshops that will be presented by the publisher of Bridges Learning Center to train teachers. It's a 2-day workshop in training teachers on how to successfully implement this Bridges program. Teachers can choose to come in June or early August, and if they choose those 2 dates, then during those first 2 days at the beginning of the year that are set aside for professional development, they'll have the opportunity to work with pilot teachers and plan, get some of the planning done to get them kind of pushed in, because the beginning of the school year is so stressful for classroom teachers to begin with. Teachers that are not available in those 2 dates during the summer will then get that classroom training from the publisher on our first 2 days of professional development in August 27th and 28th. We also have the election day just in service, which will be used for mathematics K to 5. My goal is to wait and see after our initial implementation and survey teachers and find out what it is that they need to schedule something and to say this is what we're going to do in November when teachers haven't started implementing it. It's kind of silly. And the math specialist and myself will be assisting teachers throughout the implementation. We plan to offer a lot of extra support in the classrooms to coach teachers along. It really is a different way of thinking, but it's an amazing way to think and teach mathematics.
You say it's a different way of thinking, like, what does that mean?
Can I wait and let them show you, because they will show you so much better than I could tell you.
Can I just ask you, were there any teachers in the pilot or bridges that were?
There, we took a survey, and I believe 87 to 2% that voted for bridges, so a lot of the ready teachers. Is every teacher 100% satisfied? Absolutely not. That's never gonna happen, but overwhelmingly, there is strong support from the pilot teachers and from the ready teachers as they listen to the pilot teachers talk throughout our meetings. And they went and observed, like some of the ready teachers chose to go to observe the bridges, and what they saw was very different. So some of the key components, and I know we'll talk fast. There's two components to bridges. The first part is bridges in mathematics, and that's it's a 60-minute core instruction time where students, it's a problem-centered, sometimes it will be whole group, sometimes it will be partner work, sometimes it will be independent work. It will depend on the lesson and how it's set up and how the classroom teacher sees the needs of the classroom. There's also an additional component that is an additional 20 minutes, and it's a daily lesson. It's a quick daily lesson, and it really focuses on teaching and reteaching concepts. So it's a lot of pre-teaching to get kids ready. Teachers told me by the time they got to some geometry concepts, students already really had a strong foundation in that concept because they had been pre-teaching it in number corner, and students didn't really even recognize that. They also found that it was a great way, it really helped prepare students for PSSA, because we did PSSA in April, and it's, grade levels worth the standards that we really have to get as much as we can in 3 marking periods. So they found that this was a better way to help spiral the curriculum. So the Bridges math has really 2 parts. It has problems and investigation and workplaces. So those are centers, and that's that's where that differentiation can occur, and where that's already built in to the lesson, so that students really get a different perspective depending on their needs. And in number corner, there's 4 components to it. There's a calendar grid, a calendar collector, computational fluency, and working on number lines. So there's different components, and there's assessments built in for both the number corner component and the regular bridges component. So the most important part is, what does it look like and feel like in the classroom? So I brought experts to talk about that, because they're the ones that lived it and worked really, really hard during the school year, because it is an incredible amount of planning. Much more than teachers needed to put into implement vision. So I will turn it over to the first grade. Good now.
So this is, we're in unit 7 right now, and out of 8 units. And this was a lesson from just 2 weeks ago. So the first part of the lesson, we would pull it up and we would ask, what do you notice? And that's often a way of starting any of the lessons with a game. So you would look at it, and they would just look, and then notice things. And it's a nice entry point that anybody can notice anything. So I see pennies, I see dimes, so I see that there's more pennies than dimes, or I see that it's organized in rows and columns. So depending upon the student's level, they could answer a different way than their neighbor. Start with higher level, lower level, whatever. And then we do turn and talk. So then I would introduce the game title. So this is, we're going to play today, points on a game, points on the board. And we would have, partners would have their points that would match, and they would lay them on the grid. And then we have part of it, the technology component is visual, and that the teacher can project this as well. So it's not that kids are working on technology all the time, but it's a nice tool that we can see. So they have interactive pennies and nickels and dimes that they're on the board too that we could drag if we didn't want to sit and circle up with our partner. So then we work on, I would pull out a card, or my teacher assistant for the day would pull out a card, and then we would talk about, well, how can you find this number A4, and what does that mean? And have you ever seen a coordinate grid? And coordinate grid, what is that? And then so some students might say, this is similar to something that I do in my coloring book. And they can make connections to that. And this is first grade. It's amazing. And I was in second grade previously before this, and we didn't even do this in second grade. And I'm trying to think when I taught fifth with you, Mayor, like, I don't know. Exactly. So they're, now, oh, this is how I would read this, and they come up and show it. And so after that, then I say, okay, so I'm going to take my A4. And they're like, oh, we were playing a game. Oh, that's right, teachers versus students. And they know that format. They love that because they've been doing it all year long. So it's them versus me, and it really bonds them together. And we talk about it. It doesn't it though? You do things like you put out when I'm wrong. And a lot of the games are really strategy. Now, this one is not a strategy game, but a lot of times it's how can you work together to beat me. This one is not a beat me in terms of how can you. It's a probable chance. You know, you just pick the card randomly. But a lot of the games are that thinking, like, how can I win? So I would pull the A4, and then I would take my nickel from there and drag it to my teacher's side. And then the student would take their turn. If they got like C2, then they would take it and pull it to their side. So now the penny's taken. We talk about how many, so when we finish our 8 turns, then we write on our, in our math notebook, our equation to add up our each total. What's our value of our game? And they write it left to right, you know, with the plus and the equal, and if it's 10 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, we've worked all year on number strings and how can you do, okay, I'm going to circle all my 10s together first, and then all my 2 5s, make it 10, and they're drawing all these arrows, and then they're talking to the partner and inferring, and oh, I need it this way, and I need it that way, and the whole time there's not anyone not doing anything. It's amazing. And so then we confirm that we got the same answers, and who is more and whose equation was less than. So then the next part we work on is recording our data. I say, now, what do you notice about this? And they say, well, there's just like our 10 lines that we work on all the time. And so, as we do, and Cindy will talk about it more, day of school count, and our calendar has the 10s, just like that, where it's 5 on top of 5, and they know quickly 5 and 5 is 10. And I said, well, how can we record this quickly? Well, let's use some crayons. So then we do all the dimes in one color. So if I had 36 cents with 3 dimes, a 5 and a 1, so we would color 3 10s, and then the 5, and then the 2 1s. And then in the middle, after we do the students, then we do equations for greater than, less than, or equal to. And just the review of concepts that we've done throughout the year. In the number corner, we did money, tallying, 4 different months before we even got to the student 7. So it's been continual, the review. Something else that's really beneficial, like how to be an efficient mathematician, that you can count on your fingers is fine, but then what might be quicker? Oh, finding 10s, just all the discussion that they have all day with the math is amazing. And what we're, even if they're not, our person that we talked to on the training on the phone said this, even if it's a lot in first grade, it's not a mastered, like an expected mastered skill yet, but it's exposure for what will be and soon to come. So the fact that they can read that data on a coordinate grid, that wasn't the point of the lesson, but it needed a fun way to play and learn the in the lessons, the 10s, the 5s, and the 1s. We're still like throwing out there an idea that they'll get to in a future grade, but so that the lesson will be engaging. Okay.
I'm gonna ask you.
Yes.
I feel like you ought to see what I do in first grade. I do wanna say that I came to Council Rock as a reading specialist. So
She's not a reading specialist.
So now, my first year was reading specialist, that was my love and passion. It still is my love and passion, but math has also become my love and passion. Because with this program, I don't know, teaching math has just been a whole different experience for me. And seeing the children and their excitement about math, it's just really been a whole different way to teach math. So I've been in first grade for 18 years now. So I've seen a lot of math, done a lot of math teaching, and this has really been exciting. So I want to kind of lead you to the number corner here. And I just jotted down that calendar on the left is really a calendar with a purpose. So instead of just having a fashion calendar up, now it really means something, and do something with that calendar. So what I did, I'm going to kind of work backwards here. So every day we flip one of the cards. So this was May's. So we have our little calendar pocket. Well, I didn't have room in my room, so I had to rethink it. So I have fancy little sticky tabs on my closet door, but we just think differently. But this is May. So when I first kind of look at the card and you go, what in the world are we in for this month? But this turned out to be a really neat month because it's all about coding, teaching kids how to code, teaching them how to use the hundreds chart to, go up 10, go down 10, left or right, just one, and reading their own code. So I just want to show you, we keep these charts every month. So every day I fill in new information. The kids have their own little composition books that they also write in and think through. They have their own 120 chart in their book, and so they keep track along with me. We, just read, here comes Tad, ready to explore, what did he see on 20 plus 4? So then it goes to 24, and then every day you can see down here the different code for Tad, and then we talk about how he's going to go down the hundreds on the chart. 10 and then another 10, and we talk about that, and then what does it mean to move to the right, what does it mean to move to the left, and so they're, following with their fingers, and we're writing equations, and they're finding the missing that end, and just a lot going on. And then if we look back here at April, we were talking about symmetry, and so every day the first graders got, this is also my number one, but every day they got a cutout sheet, and they were able to see if it was a symmetrical shape or an asymmetrical shape, and so you have these 21 or 24 children sitting there and discovering, oh yes, this has equal parts, or oh no, this doesn't have equal parts, and then we fill it in on the chart, and we talk about what figure was it, talk about how many folds you could fold it into, didn't it fold at all, was it exactly 2, or was it at least 4? So some kids would take their pieces and they discovered that they could get those pieces really tiny, and it could all be, exactly the same. So then we talk about, is it symmetrical, and we keep track of that. They start to notice patterns, so they notice that, oh, it's a Y pattern, and they start to see those things. When we went through was March. We were learning about the analog clocks, we were learning about digital clocks, we were learning about how much time has passed from one part to the other, so half hour, and we had to learn how to keep track of that. This was interesting. They learned about congruency and the symbol for congruency, and we talked about all the different types of shapes. So we were introduced to words like parallelogram, the trapezoids. We always did that in Robinson, but there were quadrilateral. There was just a lot of different vocabulary words that we didn't introduce before. So,
it is so fun.
so then we had, one of the centers we had was, geoboards. So then that was one of the things that they could explore on their own. We would have one out and really set these up. Somebody had a job each day to set it up to see if they really did, if they were congruent or not. This was like in January, you can see, this was a whole, just looking at equations, looking for missing atoms, and then seeing how, like, coming up with math stories. This one was, you can see that was not quite December. It was December, right? So, we talked about, but you can see, we talked about cylinders, we talked about the rectangular prisms, the spheres and the cubes. Back in November, this was really fun. They learned the whole, and then the next day would be just a bear with a chunk. The next day would be two halves, and the dogs would say gulp gulp. And then when the quarters came around, it was nibble, 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 nibble. We kept track of the, the half whole quarters, and then we came up with number sentences. And then we were done with that. We looked at this one, we weren't sure as teachers what in the world we had to check out our book, like what does this mean? Four green apples, and then the next day. So it turned out that they learned how to do a number tree. So this meant the 4 green and 0 reds. And then we would write down the equations, and every once in a while we keep track of a little story. And this was the very beginning of the year where we were talking about different ways to show our counting. So this was just the tally marks. So they learned how to deal with tally marks. They learned how to deal with popsicle sticks and bundle popsicle sticks. And they also learned at the same time how to use the 10 frame. And then of course we kept track with the different equations. So all year long they've been learning about keeping track in an organized way. They've been learning about equations and missing atoms. Then if you look, they've been talking about, here is that little number line pocket chart all year long. They talk about decades of numbers, so the children really learn about what does it look like from like 0 to 10, and then what does the next one look like. And really talking about the different decades, and it's celebrating the decades of numbers. And then now we're into like learning to count by the tens and starting at a 5, and you can count by 10 and you start at 3. So that's a whole other part that we have here, the number corner. And then we have the counter collection. So every month it was different things we were collecting as a class. Sometimes this time it's collecting quarters, and then quarters make $1, and then trading things in. We had the 120 chart, which if you look at that's Tad the frog. So he tells us, we look on that 120 chart, find out where its hat is, we fill in, the purple or the yellow, depending on, the color of that day. We fill in the, days, how many days we've come to school. They can tell us equations, to show like 160 days, so children who are able to multiply, and divide, they'll throw those things in there, so it's very simple or it's very complex. So I have very high mathematicians in my class and, some on the other end, and it really meets the needs of all those children. I feel the number corner really does a nice job with that.
That's mostly done through discourse in class. It's a class discussion with students participating using the language. I think it's amazing if you go into the classroom and you hear, little people talking about trapezoids and quadrilaterals and
Isosceles triangles, Gaussian triangles
in first grade.
And they love it, and it because of these differences in mathematical ability, the scaling triangle, remember our reading. But they have a Callaway card, so it's out for the kids to see. And then those who aren't ready for that, a triangle is great for them. But those who are really up here and they're thinking, you can throw those things out to them and they're just like little scientists.
So, I've got a question. You spend a month on each of these concepts. How do you know when it's mastered, and what do you do?
That's a great question.
Do you continue for a month even if it's mastered, and what do you do when half are mastered and half haven't?
We have assessments. There are assessments that go along with number corners, so you're able to assess that. And there is a scope and sequence in the number corners that will let you know. It will tell you when each standard is taught, in what month and in what component of the program is taught, and it will tell you specifically when the concept is supposed to be mastered. And although it looks like, you're looking at it and you're saying, really, you're counting on the hundreds chart for a whole month, our kids going to be bored. And I can tell you from being in classrooms, like Cindy said, there's so many different levels, and the lessons are designed so that there's so many entry points. Our typical math program has the entry point of today, we're going to learn how to count from tens. We all go 10, 20, 30, 40. This has so many different entry points for students depending on where their level is, that it's never just a lesson on just counting by tens.
Yeah, I wasn't looking, would a kid be bored? I'm thinking more, are we maximizing each child's potential? Because that's where I'm at.
Right, and I can tell you that, like I said before, teachers in Bridges are not asking for, during that win time, the what I need time, which is that intervention time, those teachers are not asking for resources to help them enrich students. As we implemented win time.
Well, I would think that that's kind of typical in this district.
No, it's not. I can tell you that it's not, because I can tell you that I've had numerous meetings with either grade levels, and almost every building with either grade levels or with full buildings where they're asking, Julie, we need more resources to meet those higher level math students. And every time I would get to a Bridges teacher, they'd be like, oh no, we got it. We have all of these resources available for us. So I can tell you, in my role, there was definitely a huge uptake in the number of teachers asking both myself and my specialist for resources to help meet kids' needs during that win time. And there was not, that question was not coming from the Bridges teachers.
I would say for the past, for sure. But after that, I was in first grade, so every year I had to come up with packets or ideas for what would I do with these higher level thinkers. And this year, I honestly have not needed to pull out any of them. They are very enriched by this kind
And I keep hearing enrich, and Julie knows where I'm going. I want to see accelerate. as well. I mean, as part of this,
Well,
so that's, I
I
mean,
think
that's,
that's another.
that's another discussion, but I want, this prepares it.
I think
This is
Cindy's
where it
also
starts.
showing you that there is some
Yeah.
acceleration. To have first graders talking about
Yes.
salient and
Yes.
isosceles
Yes.
triangles.
The other thing is, like, we just did, I really like this activity. It was like park benches, like picking your pathway in a park. So you had fences, which were worth 10, and park benches worth 5, and trash cans worth 2, and flower pots worth 1. And so then laying these items out, and the way that these higher level thinkers were able to take that information, figure out how to solve those problems, it was already available to them. So then,
And then you can leave some of the questions up on the board and say later, like, can you solve it a different way?
Yeah.
I'm still hearing enrichment.
Well, I think what you're looking for is that rigor. I'm going to tell you, as a fourth grade teacher, the rigor is finally there. Yes, I can offer this and this and this and this to cover and meet the needs of everybody, but at some point, is that rigor? Am I doing enough things to raise that bar, not just for the top kids, but also for every child?
Yeah.
And then that's where you go in and meet the needs of those kids. Is, okay, well, you missed it here, you missed it here, so I got this for you. And that win time, that intervention time is a great time because there are a number of different things going at a time. But I think that's the, I'm here. I think the word you're looking for is that rigor. And I think a lot of us have been after that rigor for a long time. I taught in vision for a number of years in both second grade, third grade, and now fourth grade. And I can tell you, it was today we're doing this, today we're doing this. Here we are. That is not the case. And I have to tell you for myself, one of the things that my team talks about, and we meet every Friday, tomorrow, what a treat it has been for me to sit here tonight and watch what first grade is doing, because the one thing we keep saying, there are gaps, but this is the first year, and we're doing things in a way that's not only different for students to learn. It's not that the math is different, but it's a different way of presenting, it's a different way of teaching. We're calling it different things, for heaven's sake. We're not doing just algorithms anymore. And this has been a terrific thing to see where they're going to come from. We can't wait to see what's going to happen when, for instance, we've got a discussion Tuesday. One of the kids says, how long do we have to do this bridges stuff? The rest of your life. And it was interesting how, and I was a top kid. And it was interesting because the other kids would be me. And we started taking a look, the kids really drove the discussion on all of that. But there are things that we think, wow, I wonder what the preceding, the third grade, when they get this, gee, when we go to do it in fourth grade, they're going to better understand. So that's the word I'm looking for. I just thought it was dead.
You just did your whole presentation.
I have to tell you, yes, I did coerce my partner into doing bridges. I said, yeah, we'll volunteer to volunteer fourth grade. She was the one, when we first started, she said, what did you get into? And early on, and Andy, and she's going to come tonight too. She said, this is not how the world does math. And I looked at her and I went, let me tell you something, sister, yes it is. She's now saying that. And that's been for about a couple more years more, you're right. This is how the world does math. I apologize for the sentences. I will not read to you. You all are great readers. But our planning time and how we collaborate as a team, as a grade level team, has been like nothing I've worked on. Because we need to rely on each other. It's not just my grade partner and I, it's my learning support partner. And how we share between the three of us and our win time effectively and efficiently uses the three of us. It's that math language. That's the one thing, and forgive me for calling them the top kid in that enrichment section, that has really been the biggest change for them. Because I did my head. Sorry, I don't know what that means. I actually had a discussion with his father in November, and I'm congressman, so what's the big deal of writing the work down and explain, look at why, it's a waste of time. And I found myself saying that, I said, well, I gotta tell you, the way I'm sitting here right now, it separates the good thinkers from the great thinkers. And sure enough, this is the young man now who is stepping forward, and where he thought, well, you just do it this way. And then you get this little hand from back from him, well, that's not how I did it. Well, come on up and show it. On the first screen, we had a picture of the smart board, because that's how we share our things. Come up and show what you did. And, excuse me, the hands go, well, I didn't do it that way, I did this way. And yes, we too are getting into that. What's an efficient way of doing that? You know, stop with the repeated addition. You know, your columns of numbers, you're not ending up with the right answers in a more efficient way. And watching them come up, and this one will suggest this, and that will suggest that, and it's terrific. That whole group to partner to individual, oh, trust me, the partners, hey, can I work with you? And many times I would decide who the partners are going to be, which gives me the information I do too. But the other thing that the picture seems to be coming up with that, but it says, is how do you get down in the mud? And that's really the message that we've been sharing with our colleagues, is we all need to get down in the mud and work this. There are no shortcuts. There is no shortcut. The 60 minutes goes by unbelievably fast. The number corner we see now, and really saw for a while ago, it is a preview of what's to come, and the strategies and the, it's like, oh my word, we just did, and the kids are now saying, wait a minute, we talked about that.
And I can say that I think part of what the struggle that we had in Council Rock with the some of our higher achieving students struggling is not that they don't need to learn the concept, it's that they don't need as much repetition as other students.
They learn it quicker.
Yes, right. Yes, they don't need that. They don't need all that repetition. And I think the main thing that we have all learned this year from the Bridges program is it provides opportunities for all students to get the kind of practice they need. So if I'm a student that needs to practice it more, I'm going to get that. If I'm a student that sees things at a different level and can take it to the higher level, like the student in the first grade class that can write a multiplication fact, they're going to write that multiplication fact, and that's going to be their challenge. Because I think we have to be careful when we talk about acceleration that we're not talking about just blowing through curriculum, because there's so much more to mathematics than just computation. So I think that's the beauty that this program brings, is it brings that different perspective for students.
The proof for me will be when they hit middle school, are they ready for more than we're giving them now? I mean, that's.
Quite frankly, as a fourth grade teacher, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Because
Yeah,
I don't need a sheet of 50 problems.
Correct.
For them to, like, I do a lot of open-ended problem solving with them. And when they come up, I'll be like, wait a minute, like we're doing a Titanic problem, it reminds me of your, like, wait, this is a math problem. How could you not have any math down here? Because you have to justify, they have to design a floor plan for the deck of the Titanic. And they had to start with the measurements. But then one, here, well, what's this? Or how long is the deck of the Titanic? I don't know. Well, then how do you know how to plan your space? So little things like that. So you're actually right. Like I said, I'm looking for that myself now, when you can do that.
So I want to be cognizant of time, because
Sorry.
we try to end our meetings by a certain time.
Okay.
And I know you have a couple more slides, and then we do have another agenda item, so.
We're just talking about one. This is particular, I think you were just talking about too. This was something we just did last week. This was the task and the problem and task, and these are all the skills we were looking at and that they were expected to do for that. We were laughing today, we gave a little review for Unit 6,
we're giving a test tomorrow, with a little review, and we were laughing, saying, oh my word, we should bring that tonight. So you can see that it really is not just, okay, our test is on division. So I think this is a great, these are forward steps for, my hope is exactly what you're talking about, is I agree.
And where this goes,
Yeah.
is the follow-up discussion where you can see that, we're looking at all of those skills that we talked about there, but then we're talking what fraction of the entire group were in the pool for 3/4 of an hour. Those are complex questions for a fourth grader. They don't seem complex to us, but for a fourth grade level mathematician, this is a complex discussion to have. So it's.
What impact does this have on the elementary schedule? That like this.
Well, that's an interesting question, and we certainly have had some meetings. We have 60 minutes allotted to math, so we need to find another 20 minutes. And part of what some of our discussions were with the pilot teachers, and we'll be meeting in a couple weeks to kind of plan this out more, is to find that extra 20 minutes. And classroom teachers are telling me that they are finding it, some of it is the workplaces will sometimes happen during the wind time, so that there's a group of students that are working on reinforcing some skills while the teacher is pulling kids that either need enrichment or need something else. Some of the calendar time is coming during the morning meeting, but I've been quick to always ask when someone says, oh, I do it during a meeting, ask if they're sacrificing responsive classroom, because that's really, about emotional health and social skills for students that we can't give up. And teachers, for the most part, felt that they weren't sacrificing that part, they were just doing it in a different way.
So
The home connection is the homework, kind of the homework portion of the book. The interesting thing that you'll find in this program, it used to be that envisions, there was the video, there was the worksheet, you could print it off online. There is not a at-home, watch this video if you missed the lesson, or rewatch the video kind of thing, because it's a program based on discourse and based on taking mathematical concepts and working to problem solve them, and you can't capture that in a video. So that home connection book is kind of the homework part of the program.
Yeah, I like it, so there's one for every grade.
Yes, yeah, one for every student.
And so
Everyone gets what it is.
What we order every year.
Yeah. Yeah, and they talked to us about, in future years, we'll have to make a decision of, how much we're using them, and everything is also online, so do we print them off online, or do we buy the book depending on who says it like that? And that is, the homework is not, you won't expect to see, 30 minutes of math homework. That's not the intent of the program.
The student book and also the number.
And the student book is not much different.
This is the kindergarten book. This is seriously cool.
Yes.
I wanted to comment because I was, I had experience as a parent of the Ready math, and I found it very confusing for a second grader to explain why 2 + 2 = 4. Explain your answer. And I wasn't always sure what they were getting at, but with this, as soon as I looked at the material, I knew right away. It reminded me of some of the stuff I used to do when I was younger. Seems more traditional, even though there is some enhancements. But the format, the feel, the look and the feel is very straightforward.
And the classwork books are very clear and concise and not busy. The edition book was a lot of here's a possum and too busy.
Ready kind of have that same deal. And I can also tell you that I will be offering the second and third week of June some parent workshops to just kind of give parents, there'll be 2 during the day and 1 in the evening, to give parents like a little preview of what's coming and to educate it. I mean, it is going to be different than the Envision program, so to kind of educate them on, a difference that they may see with their students coming home. And then I'll do it again in probably the end of September, the beginning of October. Because sometimes you don't know that you have questions until your child actually in the program.
Quick question. And you can answer me offline on this. Was every kid supplied a book this year for Bridges?
Yes.
Sure that? And was every student supplied a book in Bridges?
In a pilot class?
Pilot class? Send them. I mean, I can
We
tell
can
you.
talk offline.
One more time, I'm sorry. So, the cost of it all. The cost for implementing the K to 5 with all the student books and the teacher resource kits and the professional development is $389,376.21. And that includes all of the materials that we will need to implement. Including the
What's the recurring cost then for these workshops?
The only recurring, off the top of my head, I don't have the price. But interestingly, Bridges will tell you about how many, and I don't have this number in my head, how many reams of paper you would need per teacher if you're going to print it off. So we can kind of do a cost analysis.
I just want to know what the number is. I don't care if we print it or not.
Off the top of my head, I
Yeah.
can't give a budget for that.
Do we have recurring costs in vision?
We do in K to 3 we do.
I'm sure we do, but some
Right,
kind, some
all
kind
the,
of.
all the student materials, I think, books, right.
It's not to sell it to me, it's just so we know for next year, kind of,
Right.
that's all, so.
Anything else I can answer? I know we went long. You can tell we have very passionate teachers that really enjoy teaching math this year.
Mr. Tate, are you still on the line? That's right. I really.
I am, but there's dogs barking, so I'll take you.
Thank you. I just want to please pass on to all of the teachers who piloted, please express our thanks. I really do know firsthand the sort of extra effort that goes into piloting and your enthusiasm for this program. Almost makes me wish I were going back in the classroom.
Come visit anytime, sure.
So no further questions on this topic?
You got it. Oh, you can come visit.
Yeah.
Honestly, because we love it.
So, thank you all for coming tonight.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks for having me. So this agenda item will be on the board agenda for next the next board meeting next week as an item that we will vote on. And because of the significant cost of the program, even though we've discussed it here tonight, instead of putting it on consent, we'll have it as a separate agenda item.
That's a great question. There are no other districts in Bucks County that are using this program. You can find on their website school districts that are, and there's school districts all around the country and actually internationally that are using it. There's many school districts in Delaware. State College School District is using it. There's quite a few in New Jersey that are using it. There were no school districts in the surrounding. So we're trailblazers, and we are going to really make a difference for math education.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So our final agenda item for the evening is our learning management system, or LMS. And this item, as a district, we're very interested in using a learning management system, and the learning management system is a platform that enables us to deliver course content and information to students online so that they can access things at home. It creates a consistent space for our students to access what they need. And this platform, we've been using Canvas as our LMS with our virtual courses. And some of our high school teachers are also using it with their face-to-face courses as well. But as a district, we're moving forward to implementing a learning management system in grades 7 through 12 for all students, all courses. So the reason that we feel it's really important to move to a district learning management system is, first and foremost, it creates one-stop shop or one place where all the students' courses are housed. Currently, some teachers are using Google Classroom, so students have to log into Google Classroom to go to that teacher's classroom. Some teachers might just have things on their webpage still for students. Some teachers are using Canvas, some teachers might be using Edmodo, so there's different things out there.
Some teachers are using nothing. Yep.
Correct, some teachers are using nothing. So this platform creates one space where not only students, but also their parents will be able to go into the course as a parent and see things like calendar of due dates, assignments, announcements, course syllabus, course information, course assignments. Additionally, students will be able to submit assignments through the learning management system. So it helps create more consistency for our students and our parents, and it also gives our students an experience in using an LMS, which in most cases at post-secondary level, most colleges and universities use an LMS at the college level. Quite often it's the same LMS for the entire university. So resources and course information is there for students. So it gives our students that practice, that experience with that particular system. We started looking at learning management systems actually a couple of years ago. We had a full committee that evaluated several options, and we reached consensus on Canvas. We were already using it with our virtual courses at that time. And we paused for a bit because of some changes that were happening with the provider of our student information system, and we were waiting to kind of hear what was going to happen with that before we made a decision with this, because of how big the student information system is and how important that is to have something that works with that student information system. So we are now able to move forward with Canvas, and we can not only use it for our middle school and high school, but we can also leverage Canvas for things such as professional development, for teachers, for housing or storing some common documents, such as maybe curricular documents, common formative assessments that teachers are creating and want to share. So it gives us an opportunity and a space where we can do more than just house student course information. And we have updated our agreement with Instructure, who is the owner of Canvas, for a one-year agreement that's going to give access to all of our students in grades 7 through 12, and then all of our teachers grades K through 12. The cost you see there is $23,199, and that does include a basic level support. In addition to knowing this and understanding, I mentioned how the connection with our student information system. One of the things that we have been working on with our student information system folks, Power School, and our eSchool system is what's called a passback. So currently, and this was again another reason why we paused moving forward with Canvas, currently if a teacher enters a grade in Canvas for a student's assignment, because you can grade everything in Canvas and give kids feedback in Canvas, they also then have to go into TAC and enter that same grade in TAC. And that's extra work that we don't want our teachers to have to do. So we've been working with the folks at eSchool or Power School to create an add-on that actually will allow us a one-directional pass map, which means that when teachers enter grades in Canvas on a nightly basis, when things are updated, all those grades will automatically go into TAC or HAC, so that teachers won't have to do double the work. And so that particular item, you'll see that next week on the board agenda. It's about $7,900. It's something that we're still working on solicitor review of that, final review of the agreement, because it's attached to our larger agreement with Power School as well.
That means work with readers only being from Canvas.
It's a one directional from Canvas to eSchool.
From a purely marketing standpoint, I can see why it's one direction.
Yeah. So it means that teachers need to train on their.
Correct. Correct. So the wonderful thing about having our 2 high school tech integration specialists next year and having our 2 middle school continue for a second year is we have 4 folks who are going to be there to be very supportive and help teachers, are currently working on support plans and kind of mapping out goals and how do we get to that point so that we're really supporting teachers. So this item for just the Canvas agreement, if we have consent tonight, we'll put that on the consent agenda for next week at the board meeting. So any questions about the Canvas learning management system?
If we switch to this, and I agree we should, please don't, I want the goal to be 100% participation, and I want it a very tight window for the staff. I don't want to go to websites like we do now and find that it hasn't been updated since 2017 on staff members' websites. So if we're going to do this, how do we ensure that teachers use it?
Well, that's part of our implementation plan with our tech specialists, really working teachers through, here are the things, you know, you're gonna work on this first, I'm gonna show you how to do this, you're gonna build and really get things.
And I guess long term, if we have to make it contractual, we will, I think, because if we're gonna embrace this, I want participation. It's worthless if people don't use it.
Right.
So
it won't be a problem.
Okay.
And this also would, this format would also replace websites. Teachers won't need to have a web page anymore because everything that they need to communicate.
In fact, they shouldn't have websites with this system.
Right.
This should be the one stop.
It would be redundant.
Right, exactly. I don't know if Ed was, Ed, were you?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you, Dr. Elliott. I think the terrific step forward. I got the Canvas implemented in another large, very good school district, and it just offers so many possibilities. You did a nice job of describing some of them, but you know what teachers can do with Canvas is pretty limitless, and I think this is a really great step forward. My only question would be, this is a one-year agreement. What protection do we have from the vendor, you know, putting some significant price increases on us in subsequent years?
I think that, you know, we've been working with Canvas for several years because we've been using it in our virtual courses, and they've been very, very agreeable with a reasonable price with those agreements. So as far as you're asking if we have something in place to prevent significant price increases, that's not been part of the conversation with them at this point, but I think that's something that we can continue to discuss with them.
Mr. Tate, I would just like to add that our initial pricing from them came through the consortium with the IU. So if they were to make a price change for us, they'd be making it for several districts in the county, and I think that that would be an issue.
That's a good point.
Good, good. All right, I'm satisfied. I think this is a great step forward. Thank you.
We also agree, I'd like to see this move forward.
I just have one question. Are we selling ourselves short a little bit by not putting it in sixth grade? When we talk about that transition to 6th to 7th grade, that'd be a nice opportunity to get the 6th graders in line with what they're going to experience in 7th grade teachers process. One of the issues that we continue to have in elementary and middle school is that transition. Kid will walk in and take 8 to 10 weeks to get used to the new program. I don't know where that's going to lead.
What do you mean 8 to 10 weeks to get used to it?
Middle school, that's the average time for transitions. Parents and kids.
So I think that one of the things that we discussed is having this be a secondary and not at the elementary level. Once we start to really use it, I think that that's open for conversation to see if we feel that adding 6th grade is something that we want to look at in the future.
So the teachers at the elementary level will have access to the system. So if the 6th grade teachers want to embrace it and start using it to learn how to use it, they can. Now, we're not licensed for the students in 6th grade, but we could mold them into it and then reset the license
My only
next
concern
year.
is Mike always talks about consistency. But a 6th grade teacher at one school that's inventive and wants to do it, and then you're going to have somebody dragging it to a different school.
The other thing that we're going to do too is at the end of the year next year, I mean, this is pretty aggressive to roll it out at both the middle and high schools in 1 year, which we think is very doable. So I think we're going to have during the year points where we sit back and say, how's this going? What have we learned? What haven't we learned and stuff? So we may I see this growing into a 2 or even 3-year rollout plan based on, I don't think kindergarten kids are going to use Canvas. I really don't see it happening. But we could see some of the districts have pushed it down to 4th grade. It's like when we initially rolled out usernames and passwords. We went to 6th grade, and now 1st grade kids have their own password because the kids are comfortable doing that. So I see this evolving as we start embracing it.
I think, you know, I think we may want to just take a peek at the 6th grade and see if it's worth harnessing that effort. When we get the tech specialists around at the elementary level for that year, we have personnel there. It may be worth taking a look at it.
I'll say that I'm not interested in 6th grade next year. Let's see if it evolves and develops. I'm actually a bit dismayed to hear that folks are saying it takes 8 to 10 weeks to transition into middle school. I think that's absurd, to be honest with you, having been a middle school principal. So if we have work to do in that arena, let's do that work. Because under no circumstances should it be taking a full working period, quarter of the school year for kids to transition into middle school, especially in a healing environment.
If it makes you feel better, it was not my experience either time.
So, and to your point, Ed, if we decide after looking at this and evaluating that we think it's viable to move to 6th grade, it will be all 6th grade. It won't just be those who would like to. But we need to fully evaluate that and focus on our implementation at the secondary level first.
I see this as a fairly heavy lift for the staff. Yeah. So that's adding another layer of complexity, which is 11 more buildings, you know, or X number more buildings. That's
I mean, at least we could say, I mean, it's a lot of teachers and stuff, but it's 4 buildings. So I mean, I know it's strict. I mean, and my kids have used Canvas. I've seen it, you know, through them in their college, and I know that it's ultimately going to bring a lot greater efficiency. It's going to be a huge time saving and something that the teachers will be like, have we ever not had this? But to get to that, you know, the learning curve change is hard, and it's one more thing. And if the elementary teachers are dealing with an entirely new math program, let's not throw the LMS on top of it yet. So I think this is great, all for it.
Mr. Frederickson, last question is for you. Do we have the IT capabilities to handle this?
Right.
You have I mean, I don't know how many servers.
It's cloud-based.
It's cloud-based, okay. We can do that with student information? Yes, we can do that.
We do it now with student information systems cloud-based.
I guess we can, sorry.
All that stuff's addressed in the contract, so I'm comfortable with security.
Okay, all right.
Anything else on this topic? Any others? Hearing none? We are adjourned. Thank you.